Get ready for the Security Strong podcast. We tackle IT issues, discuss best practices for your technology safety, and interview professionals that are on the front lines within their organization's technology infrastructure. And now your host, owner and founder of Tobin Solutions, Jeremy Cherny.
Thank you for listening to the Security Strong podcast. My name is Jeremy Cherny, and I'm the founder and CEO of Tobin Solutions, Wisconsin's leading provider of IT services and information security solutions. Information security is critical in today's world. Systems are more complex than ever. We're under constant attack. New threats emerge daily, and yet cybersecurity is often an afterthought or poorly executed, leaving your data and systems vulnerable. In our Security Strong podcast, we talk about security as a process, not a product. We interview thought leaders and those accountable for information security. We discuss the latest issues, best practices, and war stories you can learn from to protect your business and what matters to you. Please be sure to visit securitystrongpodcast.com or tobinsolutions.com to subscribe. This week we're talking with Sandra Estok, founder of Way to Protect. Hello, Sandra. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jeremy. So grateful to be here with you today. Awesome.
So why don't you start off? Why don't you tell us a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So before I start with introducing my technical credentials or who I am, I want to share who I am as a person and why my journey in cybersecurity and my journey on the technical world changed. So many years ago, I was returning from visiting my mom in Colombia. And as we were landing in Miami, the pilot announces that Homeland Security officers were boarding the plane and to take out our passports. So I handed my passport with my work visa. And next thing I know, Jeremy, I'm the only one being marched off the plane and thrown into that room, the famous room that
wow.
Yeah, every airport has.
Yeah.
Of course, no phone calls. I don't know what's happening. My husband, he's waiting for me in Chicago and he doesn't know anything about me. And Jeremy, 10 hours later, and handed back my passport. And my passport has been revoked. I was relocated from SC Johnson at the time. And I came back and we started working on, what's going on. I went back to Venezuela, my home country, and I was supported with all the attorneys and, everyone is trying to get me a new visa so I can return to the States. And I'm in the interview in Venezuela. And during the interview, the officials kept asking me, why were you in China? Who do you know in China? Who is your contact? And Jeremy, I had no idea. I'd never been in China. I was like, I have no idea what are you talking about. And they said, well, somehow a smuggler in China got a hold of your information and have been smuggling women into the US using your identity.
Oh, wow.
So I convinced them I'm not a smuggler. So I get my new visa and we fly back home and everything is good, right? So
how do you convince them you're not a smuggler?
Well, they with all those questions like, what were you in China? Who do you know? I'd never been in China, so they couldn't find any connection with me.
Oh, okay.
And so I think they believe me that I'm not a smuggler. Mm-hmm. And so I returned and my job was traveling. So I had a lot of projects overseas. So 2 weeks later, I'm back in a plane and I'm returning from Europe. And, everything is fine. So I get through Chicago, I get off the plane, I go to passport control again. And you know what, Jeremy, I'm right back into that room. Because I have to prove that I am the real me. And that happened to me over and over every time that I traveled for 6 years. Yeah, so when I wrote my name, everything was Chinese. And like I had companies, import and export companies between China and Latin America on my name. Like everything is in Chinese. So of course, you can imagine nobody wanted to travel with me, not even my own husband. And I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time.
No, it sounds awful. It sounds awful.
But anyway, finally, I everything is okay. I got my U.S. citizenship, my passport. I actually changed my name, and really everything is okay now. And why I'm starting with this story is because I have been in the IT industry at the time, for many years. I have been in the industry for over 20 years. And when this incident happened, it didn't occur to me that it was identity theft. And it was after I switched my career from IT and entered the world of cybersecurity, and later I entered the world of data privacy, that I understood really what happened. And I started understanding the importance and how, who are behind hacks and how things happen, why identity theft, it's so critical, how cybercrime is, who's behind it. And it blew my mind that at the beginning I couldn't make that connection. But once I entered that cybersecurity world, like everything became clear crystal for me. And so sometimes we have the perception that just because we are a technical person, or because, I have been in IT for a long time, I know technology, ergo, I know cybersecurity. And I have to say, there are skill sets and there's a mindset that exists in cybersecurity that you have to develop. And I did not, maybe it's not for everyone, but at least for me, I needed to have that mindset of, when you go into a place, you can notice things that probably I wasn't aware of them before. Like, you're more skeptical, and it doesn't mean that I don't trust people, but I'm more aware of my surroundings. I'm more aware of everything that's going on, either it's in my email, on my online life, or, in my physical world.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying that's a lot about mindset and that something shifted there for you.
It did. For me, and it kept shifting. I will say it kept not shifting, but it kept getting clear. And within cybersecurity, I was very fortunate to build a program, co-built a program, and we built a team, and we I was exposed to many different areas of cybersecurity. So, either compliance side, I work on the ICS space, I work also on the training and awareness. And what happened to me is I started to feel so much passion about teaching and about building a program that was more about making a personal connection with cybersecurity. Because, in so many of the programs that I saw, we focus so much on you have to do this, you shouldn't do that, or fear. And what I realized is when you are in fear, you don't take really action. It doesn't really go inside of you. It doesn't, become part of you. And when I started changing that, and I took my programs and I make my programs have that personal component, we started to see incredible results. And obviously, the more I did that, the more passion I developed for it. And eventually, I just decided to leave my corporate career and open my company, Way to Protect, and to fully dedicate myself to that, to develop a conversation on cybersecurity that is not based on fear, that is more based on stories, it's more based on a personal connection. And it's more based on building that second nature that we all need to have, so we can protect whatever matters most to us.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sandra. I think I love what you said about fear, because when you're in fear of something, it really
Mm-hmm.
kind of dictates a particular way to think and act, and
Mm-hmm.
often stops people from thinking and acting in the best ways. Um, and shifting that to something else, it seems like something really opens up for people, and them allowing to hear you around
Mm-hmm.
security.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. So do you run into those travel issues anymore for you? Or is it after you changed your name and cleaned some things up that it got handled, or is that something you
Yes.
still run into?
Yeah, no, I don't have any more issues. Thank God.
Oh, good.
No. And now, definitely so grateful. Every day that I wake up, I'm just um, super thankful and super grateful for the opportunity that we have, my family and I, to be in this country. I mean, we love being here in the US, and I love being a US citizen, and definitely it changed my life. So super grateful for that.
Fantastic. So how do you stay on top of all the security threats that are out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, because every day something else, pops, and either it's a vulnerability or the news, or a new way for us to be hacked or to be breached. And so how I stay on top, obviously I read a lot, I research a lot, but I also find quiet time, because yes, I could read all the news and I can read everything that's going on, but I'm always trying to find a way, how can I take what's going on and make a message that is different, that how can I shift it in a way that it gets into my audience. And that's what I focus on the most. It's how to take what's happening in the world, and how can I articulate that in a way that is more simple.
How what's an example of something you've done that with?
Yeah, of course, I can give you an example. Perfect. So we see how many, we need to do updates on your computer, you need to do updates on your phone, and most of the things that are happening are because we have vulnerabilities. And the way that I try to explain that to my audience is using an example or an analogy. In this case, if you are in your house, and if you wake up and there's a big hole in one of the walls of your house, and then the next day you see another one and another one, and you are in a house that is surrounded by holes, I bet you are going to fix that, because somebody can just sneak through one of those holes that you can see actually, and maybe be in the living room, or if it's in your business, sneak into your business. Well, in the same way, our technology is full of holes. So when we don't update our operating systems, our apps, or our devices, we are literally having holes that cyber criminals, I call them cyber monsters, can just sneak in through. And now, you know what happens after. So that's
Right.
one example where it's more visual, and it's more, okay, now would you take an action to fix your home holes? Why you take an action to fix your phone or your device's holes?
Got it. That's great. So when you know about those holes, or even in that way, that I love the way you use that metaphor of the holes, or the analogy of the holes, because that's real obvious for people when they know, oh yeah, when they see something physical they can touch, it's real obvious. But when you talk about a hole in their web browser, or in their operating system, or some application they care about. So how do you handle the further awareness training for them about what the security threats are, and about the specific security threats that might impact them?
Yeah, of course. So let's pick an example with phishing, which is one of, ransomware phishing. It's very common, right? We all get emails, and that's a common threat that we are all exposed, whether you're security, whether you're in IT, or whether you are just a regular business or a home business, or a mom or dad or kids. Like everyone gets somehow emails that are trying to either impersonate, steal, or do something, right? So one way that I use for phishing and how you can prevent it. Yes, I mean, we can recognize phishing. We can just be looking at the email and the spelling and all of that. But that's more the how. But if you have the mindset, and this is what I believe, that when we change that mindset, cybersecurity, I think, will go to the next level. It's if you are present, I'm a believer in mindfulness and, things like meditation and being present and being in the moment and trying to not react, trying not to have elements outside of me to control me. I control them. So if I get an email urging me to take an action or to go, click on a link or a text message or anything, the first thing that I teach is just breathe, just stop. Like knowing that you have control over your cyber life, knowing that you can decide whether to click or not is so powerful. And when we start seeing it that way, we start changing. So now we're not so unconscious to just click or browse and, get malware in our computers because we're not even realizing it, that we're clicking on a malicious link.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Because there is something about, there are certain things you can do to prevent some threats from being there, but you can't prevent everything. And especially around phishing emails, they always find some way, it seems, to get around things. And having it be less about the victim of it, but in control of whether they click or not, really does put people in position of power.
Exactly. And that's what I believe, cybersecurity. I believe, cyber criminals, again, I call them cyber monsters. They have made cybersecurity personal. And what I mean by that, if you think about how they exploit human emotions, like, they try to convince you to do something so they can get access. So either they scare you, they try to fake either a relationship, try to play your emotions, your curiosity, like any of the human traits we have been used against us. Mm-hmm. And I think once we realize that the only way we can improve and protect what we care to protect is when we start seeing cybersecurity in the same way. Cybersecurity has to become personal. And it has to become second nature to each of us. Because if they made it personal, the cyber monsters, we gotta make, the only ways we make this, like the way that I can contrast what's going on in the world is if I make cybersecurity personal as well. And it's inside of me.
Well, that's great. Yeah, really puts the power back in the end user's hands too.
Exactly. And one example, what I mean when second nature is when we were kids, like I learned how to cross the street. Like I remember one time I jumped out of my mom's car, or my stepfather's car, and I didn't know anything. I jumped and I wanted to cross the street and a car almost hit me. And my mom was just yelling. I mean, it was a horrible moment. And I got yelled and I got spanked. And it was just like, I was so scared. And I learned in that moment, moving forward, I got to look at both sides. I cannot jump out of the car and just go and try to cross the street. Like, and my whole life, when I cross the street, I look for the signs that tell me, yeah, it's safe that I can cross now. And I think whether, something like what happened to me happened to you, or you have parents that taught you how to cross that street. Like we somehow learned that.
Yes.
Right? In the same way, when you cross the street that you're not thinking about looking both sides, I think when we get an email, when we go online, we need to develop that same sense that we develop in the case of crossing the street, so that you don't even have to be thinking about. So if I see an email and it has a link, or if I see an email that it has an attachment, I already know I'm not going to click on that. I already know that if this is something I'm not expecting, I don't even know you, why would I go there? And if it's something that, I'm expecting and I know the person, why wouldn't I validate if it's something that important? I validate, get a phone call and say, hey, did you send me this information? Or just validate that. And when you get that in that habit, I think, the pressure that which we all have to being hacked or being breached, or, it's reduced because we're in control. I believe we are in control of our cyber life. Nobody else is going to fix it for us. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you didn't get hit by a car when you were a kid. You would be here now. And, it's great because, there's that awareness of it. Like you said, you kind of come out to the street now. And then it also sounds like there's also those like actions we need to take. Like, that there's something, there's a street and there's something there that could be dangerous. And then you at that point then say, okay, now I'm going to look, left and right and left again and that kind of a thing. Like, what actions to take inside of keeping yourself safe so that you can take that next step into the street if it's safe.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Thank you. So how about, what are some things that you're advising people on? What are, a couple of the most important things people can do to protect their data online?
Great. I actually have 3 steps if you go to happilyevercyber.com, you can get 3 steps in how to protect your information. And I created a checklist for that too. But I will think that for me, being mindful is the number one advice that I will give anyone. I practice mindfulness. And what I mean by that is when you get an email, when you get a phone call, just pause, breathe. And once you do that connection, make whatever decision or go in whatever directions you want to go. So that's number one. I think number 2 is taking care of the basics. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of different, tools, devices, technology. And if we don't take care of the basics of updating and doing the housekeeping of things, it's going to break. It's like if you never clean your carpet in your house, right? You never see the dust, really. You see a carpet and it's clean. But when you take that vacuum and you vacuum and you see if it's a backless vacuum, how much dirt and how much dust and how much icky was in your floor when you clean it up. So in the same way, when you take care of updating your phone, when you take care of controlling your passwords, controlling where you go, your social media, and all the things that you have, your carpet is going to be much cleaner. And I will say my third recommendation is I'm a believer in intentions, declarations, and keeping a positive aptitude in life. I'm super grateful for everything that has happened to me. So what I do is I use a password manager, and I have one long phrase as my password, and that phrase has meaning to me because every time I type that phrase, I'm reminding myself of something that I want to achieve or something nice that it's in my day. So it makes me happy. And at the same time, it's a very long phrase that protects my passwords.
Got it.
So I will say, make your password work for you.
Well, that's great. Oh, so as you're typing in the password, it's also empowering you or reminding you of something that's important to you.
Yeah. And you can mix, letters with special characters, numbers. I mean, you can be very creative in your phrase. But again, make it meaningful to you.
Right. Well, that's great. That's awesome. How about, if you've been around this for a while, we've all either experienced or heard some war stories we can learn from. What do you want to share with our audience?
I think, I guess my own story I recovered from it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So it took me a long time. And when I think about that, yes, it was tough for me and my family. Going through an identity theft situation, and every day that I look online and you see your name being impersonated, and there's nothing you can do about. Like everything, when I Google my name, was in Chinese. But beyond that, there were other consequences for me and my family. And like my husband wasn't able to work for 2 years because all my visa, all the papers were under my name. And this was the first year of our relocation. So you can imagine moving from one country, to another country. You leave your family, you leave your friends, everything you leave behind. It's a big change. And then your identity is stolen on top of it. Mm-hmm. So you have to deal with that. And at the time, it was so much pressure that, I thought my marriage was going to be impacted because my husband wanted to go back to Venezuela. I wanted to stay. I mean, living in the United States was my dream. And, you get into this, the most stressful time. So many times we, of war stories or recovery stories, we don't think about the emotional drainage that is going through an identity theft situation or cybercrime. If your computer gets hacked, if you lose all your data, if you're a victim of ransomware, now you have to, your data is gone for your business. What would you do? Like, how would you recover? And thinking about not just recovering the data, but what are the consequences to your family, to your health, to the relationships of the people that you have with your employees. I mean, we sometimes don't talk about that, but it's a huge impact.
Wow. Yeah. That is, we do talk about the economic or business impact of it. Mm-hmm. And then there is that personal impact, the emotional impact. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a customer once and we were talking about why security was important. Mm-hmm. And he said something that surprised me. He said, Jeremy, if I don't get this right, my job is on the line. Mm-hmm. And if I lose my job, I'm scared my wife might leave me. Mm-hmm. So there is that whole impact outside of this beyond the business that really does get to why people really care about this.
Absolutely. I'm with you. Absolutely great. I mean, for your friend and having that mindset, because now there's more on the line for you. And I think when we think about that of our own, our devices and everything, sometimes we take it for granted. And most of us will think identity or cybercrime won't happen to me because, my company's small, or, I'm not rich. Or I'm my corporate job, I'm just, not that high in my corporate job. I don't have a lot of money. The reality is, identity theft and cybercrime can happen to anyone because the motivations of cyber monsters are endless. It could be for financial gain, for espionage, nation states, and it could be for, an insider threat that you have in your company. It could be, someone wants to impersonate you because they want to have access to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many different reasons why people do what they do. I mean, vengeful spouses. I mean, I know cases where it becomes, a way to get revenge on the other party, and it's a crazy. Like, it's someone going through a divorce, and they use things to hurt the other person. That know.
Right. Yep. Oh, that was fantastic. So that's great. Thank you so much. What few fun questions here? What's your favorite tech gadget?
Oh my goodness, my favorite. That's I love. I will say wearables. I love to know. I love my data, and one of my new gadget, I guess, my tech gadget. It's about wellness, and it's a ring actually that measures how I sleep, and I love it because it changed the way I do things every day. It helps me to keep myself on track. And it's not, and I obviously, having technology and having health information, I'm very paranoid too. So I can lock it down. Just, it gives me that flexibility not to have my data exposed so much, but at the same time, give me enough data that I can use so I can improve my health. So I'm I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
No, that totally works. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that works for me.
It doesn't have to be business, and that sounds like not only fun, but sounds like something useful too. I do a wearable as well at night and track certain things, and for me, the data does make a difference. If it's tracking my sleep or tracking my steps or entering what I eat, I find I do alter some behaviors based on that data.
Exactly.
Look at my watch told me I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. The next night, I'm almost certainly going to bed a little earlier to try and catch up a bit. So
exactly.
That's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how about a favorite, geeky cyber movie or TV show or book or something that you really enjoy around that?
Yeah, I love Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
I'm so sad that the show ended, but that was I love him. I mean, I love the actor. I love the set. I think from a lot of the different shows, it was very close to reality. Like, things don't happen magically and you just type so fast and then you hack someone.
Right.
So I really like how he made so many things real for people to relate to, and how he used social engineering, and how through the show he demonstrated how easy it is to get into someone's life. So I love that show.
I watched the first season, and I didn't watch after that. Did it? I'm still on my list to complete, but did it end up well? Did they wrap it up nicely?
It ended weird, but it's okay. I guess I was looking at the show more for how the plot was playing, and like I said, how they were using social engineering. So it was more an investigation project for me. Like how, some of the shows show cybersecurity and they sensationalize the lives of hackers. And sometimes, their lives are not great. And,
fantastic.
And I think that's what I was getting out of the show. I don't watch a lot of TV, but that one in particular was more for me to, obviously be entertained, but also understand the mindset and how they were doing it, and what was behind the message they wanted to leave with the show.
Awesome.
So I recommend you to finish it. It's worth it.
I'm going to do that. Fantastic. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, one last comment for me is just you are in control. Nobody else is going to solve cybersecurity for you. Whether you are a business owner, you're a stay-home mom or dad, or you work in a corporation. Cybersecurity and cyber criminals are not going anywhere. So let's take action. That's the only way.
Great. I love it. Thank you. So thank you for listening to the Security Strong podcast. Please be sure to visit securitystrongpodcast.com or tobinsolutions.com to subscribe. Please be security strong. And hey, let's be careful out there.
Thank you for listening to the Security Strong podcast. At Tobin Solutions, we have a strong security mindset. Visit tobinsolutions.com to learn more. And make sure to join us for our next episode by connecting with us at securitystrongpodcast.com.